Hi.
Hi.
And hi everyone, my name is Anshuman.
And my name is Ashwitha.
And a warm welcome to a very special episode of For the Love of Comics, where for the first time in this channel's history, I'm joined by a co-host, my wonderful wife. Welcome to the channel.
Thank you.
But welcome to the channel is a little odd thing to say because you're quite familiar with For the Love of Comics, are you not?
Yes, I live in the studio where it's filmed, and I'm usually on the other side of the camera.
That's right. For most of the videos in which I appear in front of the camera, Ashwitha is serving as director, cameraman, and crew. The videos in which we're looking down on the books I try to handle by myself. But not just behind the scenes, you've also hosted a show once.
It was many months ago now, but I did the What is Castle Waiting video when you lost your voice.
So if this is the first time you're seeing Ashwitha host, I strongly recommend you check out What is Castle Waiting, which I'll link in the description below and in the top right corner of your screen. How was that experience hosting that show? Did you have fun?
I did. I had a lot of fun because Castle Waiting, as you know, is one of my favorite comics of all time. So it worked out really well for me that I got to do that video.
One of your favorite comics. Does that mean you're a big comics reader, a big fan of comics?
I'm definitely not as much of a comics reader as you are. I'm reading more comics every year, but I didn't grow up reading comics the way that you did. I had a mom who was quite snobby about what we read, so I had to sneak Tintins home sometimes, and I did read a whole bunch of mythological comics published by the Indian publisher Amar Chitrakatha, but other than that, I didn't really read comics at all.
Archie comics?
Nope.
Flash Gordon, Mandrake, Phantom?
Nope.
How about Richie Rich, Casper, Popeye?
So I didn't even know that those guys were comics characters who had books written about them because I only knew them as TV cartoon characters.
Well, the reason you're here today is because this is our 100th episode on For the Love of Comics. And on the community page here on YouTube, we had a viewer poll asking the viewers what they would like to see that we've never attempted before. And co-hosting an episode with my wife won by a huge margin.
I don't know why.
So here you are, thanks to popular demand. And today we're going to be talking about
The Sandman by Neil Gaiman and a whole bunch of artists, which is a series I haven't read yet, but you're quite familiar with.
Regular viewers of this channel will know that The Sandman is one of my favorite series. I have a playlist of videos on The Sandman, which I'll link in the description below and in the top corner of your screen, in which I talk about the Absolute Edition, the publication history, as well as an introduction to the series. So you've never read this series before. Do you know a lot about it? Have you watched my video?
I have watched your video, and I've also heard a lot about the series from friends of mine who know that I read a lot of fantasy and science fiction, and so they say that this series would particularly appeal to me.
Are you then familiar with other works by Neil Gaiman other than The Sandman?
I've read a few of Neil Gaiman's prose works. I liked Neverwhere. I really like Stardust because I like fairy tales, and I especially like when authors kind of twist fairy tale ideas around. My favorite is Good Omens, which he wrote with Terry Pratchett, and I read it at least once a year.
So would you say you're a Neil Gaiman fan?
I like Neil Gaiman. I'm not sure if I'm a fan, but I definitely like his writing. I haven't read comics by Neil Gaiman, and everybody I know who's read both his prose and his comics tells me that his comics work is a lot better than his prose. But you've not read much of his prose, and you've read a lot of his comics, right?
Well, I've read his children's work like Coraline, and I've read some of his comics. Like there's a collection of DC stories, which are superhero stories that he did. I've read Black Orchid and some of his spin-off stuff with Sandman. I don't know whether his prose or comics is better, but I love the Sandman, and I think that this is the best thing by Neil Gaiman that I've ever read.
Yeah, I'm excited to read it then.
All right, so a little bit on how we're going to do this. There are 10 volumes of The Sandman, which is a lot to read, even for someone of your speed. So we're going to dedicate one episode per volume, probably once every 4 weeks or 5 weeks. So because of the popularity of the co-host option in that poll I talked about, you have now signed on for 10, 11, maybe 12 episodes. I hope you're ready for that.
Sounds like fun.
But one final thing remains, and that is to select in which format we're going to read The Sandman. Since I'm going to be rereading it at the same time that you're reading it for the first time, it's a good thing that we have multiple editions over here. So your first option is you read them in the single issues.
Okay.
There are 75 of these issues that were published over many years as a monthly. Reading it in this form will put you in the shoes of the people who read it on a monthly basis as it was being published, had the story developed for them chapter by chapter, issue by issue. This also allows you to read arcs in multiple issues and standalones all in the same format, and that's a unique texture. And of course, you can always look at the ads and read the letters to the editor and the other stuff that singles are good for.
Yeah.
Next, you've got the collected volumes, and another thing that you may not be aware of is we have almost the entire Sandman collection in first edition hardcovers. So you could choose to read them in these formats, collecting about 4 or 5 issues each in 10 volumes. And finally, we have the super deluxe, oversized, remastered absolute editions, what some people would say is the way the Sandman should be read. These are nice faux leather bound hardcovers and contain an ocean of extras. So what do you think? Single issues, collected editions, or the absolute edition?
I think I'm going to steer clear of the single issues because I know that they're quite precious to you, and I like reading in bed, maybe with a bit of chocolate in my hands. So I don't want to destroy any part of them. And maybe I won't pick the absolute edition either because, again, I like reading in bed and I feel like this would be kind of difficult to maneuver. So I think I'm going to go with the collected, the slim hardcovers because, like you, I am very partial to a slim hardcover.
So you're going to read my first printings while eating chocolate?
Well, no, I'll avoid the chocolate.
All right, so collected volumes, it is for you. Unfortunately, I don't have a hardcover of volume 1, which means you'll start with Preludes and Nocturnes, the trade paperback, and then you'll switch over to the hardbacks from the second volume onwards. And I think I'm going to read them in the original 75 single issues. As precious as they are to me, and I do keep them bagged and boarded because I don't want them to fall apart, I do think the pleasure of comic books is in the reading, so I wouldn't want them to be just put away in their bags and never be read again. I don't think I've read the whole series in single issues from start to finish. I bought all of these in batches, so I read them in those batches as I purchased them over the years. So I think this will be a good opportunity to go from start to finish in 75 issues.
Yeah.
So take a look at the blurb over there and tell me which issues are in this.
First volume of 11.
Oh, 11. Of course it's 11. I'm sorry, I've been saying 10 volumes, but it's 11 volumes.
1 to 8.
All right, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. 8 issues for me, 1 volume for Ashwitha. And this is the part where we invite you to read along with us. You can start from the very beginning right now and join us in 3 or 4 weeks' time to talk about the first volume. Or you can, over the course of the next 11 months, jump in at any point of time to read one of the arcs with us. We'll gather back here to discuss what you, as a brand new visitor to the Sandman universe, feel about it. And I'll get to reread the series after 3 or 4 years. And see if it affects me the same way. I'm obviously not going to spoil anything for you, but from now on, I think I'm even going to avoid telling you what my opinion on things are beforehand, just to make sure you have as pure a reaction and as unadulterated by my opinion as possible.
Yeah, that's what I want.
So there you have it. We're about to launch into an 11-episode series coming to you on a monthly basis of Ashwitha and myself reading The Sandman. I hope you're along for the ride. Whether or not you're going to read along with it, we would love to have your comments below. And if you're not already subscribed, do so and hit that notification bell to be notified of new uploads, especially the ones in which Ashwitha reappears to talk about The Sandman. Thank you as always for watching.
Thank you.
This has been For the Love of Comics, and I'll see you at the next video.